see the one with just the map on it?
I see a PowerPoint slide with a title.
Right. So in other words, you don't see the upcoming slides and everything. That's what I was
Right.
asking.
I just
Okay.
see your
All right.
toolbar on the bottom and a slide.
Okay, good.
The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining our advanced practitioner call today. For those of you who are new to the call, the purpose of this call is to provide some training at a more advanced level for Sharewell, but more importantly, to be an open forum for Sharewell users such as yourself to connect with one another, pose questions to the group, challenges, share ideas you've been working on. So the first portion will be the training component. We have our senior consultant, Kim Euchre, who's on the line. Today she's going to be walking us through the new change management map that's going to be available. She's been working with the beta version, so she'll be talking us through that. After we wrap up, we will keep the lines open as long as you wish to connect with one another. If you're not familiar with Stratacom, we are a Sharewell partner for the past 5 years. We've been doing IT service management consulting since 1997 with a variety of other products in the industry, primarily working on the enterprise level. Kim has been on our staff for, I think, around 15 years, but she's been in the industry for almost 30, so she's a great expert. We'll start the broadcast with everyone in muted mode. So if you have questions, I'd like to invite you to enter those through the questions panel. If you don't see the panel, you should find an orange box with a white arrow. Click that, it'll expand all your panes and you should see the questions there. So go ahead and send questions as you think about them. I will interrupt Kim for you as we go along. Towards the end, we will unmute folks so that you can network with one another. So at this point, I would like to dig right in and kick it over to Kim for our training topic.
Good morning. Can everyone, or good afternoon, can everyone hear me? I'm going to be talking about Sharewell's new change management map that is currently in beta. This map was developed by James Bucknell and Carlos, I can't think of his last name at the moment. Anyway, at Sharewell. And currently, as far as what they're talking about, is that it will currently remain in beta. It has been a tested beta, so it is completely functional. And as well as the process model designer, which is a new piece as well, that is also beta, but it is also functional, and you could download and or use either one of these options in your current environments today. We're going to talk a little bit first about the process model designer. It is an open framework. So in other words, it is a new major business object that is built to work with Sharewell. It is designed to build out workflow for business objects with phases, states, and other things that you want to bring into it. You can add in static approvers into this process. There is a way that you could extend it to bring in additional approvers as well. Change type. Inside this, there's a change type, which each change type is going to be defined as a process model record. Out of the box, when you install the map, there are 5 different kinds. It is a standard, minor, major, significant, and emergency, which all model an ITIL type of process. And the process visualizer is going to show some detail about what happens in each phase. And we'll get there, and I'll show you some of that as we move along. So here we're looking at what this looks like on the form. And by the way, at the end of this, after I've gone through all the slides, I will go in and I will demo and talk about some of this inside the tool. But I wanted to walk through this in terms of the PowerPoint first. What we're looking at here is the visualization of the change type of standard. They're doing a little bit of this dynamically. And so, for example, here, when we're looking at a standard. Up across the top are the phases that it goes through. It's a draft, assessment, implementation, completed, closed. And then under each one of those tiers, you can actually see some things that it is actually doing under the covers. So for example, in draft, you have a status of draft. In the assessment phase, you have 2 different types of statuses that you could have. You can have an assessment status of review, and then when you move forward from that, you go into an accepted status. After you move forward from the accepted status, you're going to move into the implementation phase, and then you're going to go through the open status, the assigned status, and the in progress status. You'll notice at the end of the in progress status, which happens to be implementation, there's also a little note there that says tasks must be closed. And I'll show you when we get to the process model record where that's just a checkbox. And so they're actually managing a lot of things right off of these records. And after you move forward from that, then you would go into peer review, verification, and obviously then you're closed. And so you can see here how the change type of minor goes through a different process. It has additional requested in addition to the assessment. And so you can see that you also have under number 3 for the status under requested that there's an approval there that's required. And so each one of these, and I've moved forward to significant, you'll notice that there's an approval here. I think under assessment, there's another estimated of resources, but you can see how these things change with each type. And an emergency has a completely different process. So you have 5 phases. You have a draft phase, then you go to your ECAB approval. You go to your implementation where you have a lot of different statuses that you're working through in this emergency. And then you go through a post-implementation review of what caused the emergency and then on to close. So in the process model, each change type is a collection of phases. It is a collection of states within each phase. And then it's also a collection of approvals within each state. So here what you see across the top is you see the phases that the change will go through. There's draft, ECAB approval, implementation, PIR, and closed. And now down here I have buttons that allow me to delete a phase, reorder a phase, or insert a new phase in between 2 of the other phases. And toward the bottom here, I have the ability to work with the states, otherwise known as statuses. And I can open the states tab, which is going to show over in the tabs on the right-hand side. I can delete a state, I can reorder them. I can auto set the next state, so it'll go there automatically. I can remove the state from the golden path. What the golden path means, golden path is always the standard path. So open, in progress, closed. But maybe I have, like if I had, open approval, in progress, then closed. Maybe during the approval, I have a deny status. Well, denied doesn't fit that golden path. It doesn't fit the normal everyday path. It stands out there somewhere in the, or like reopened in the case of an incident, isn't something that would not be part of your golden path. So by removing that from the golden path, it's going to be a state or a status that exists, but it's not necessarily going to exist as part of any specific phase. I can remove it from the golden path. I can add it back. I can also add an approval to a specific status, and then I can remove an approval from a status. So now what we do is we talk about the state approvals. From the approvals are managed out of the status records instead of the states records. Instead of being managed, like as you normally would through Cherwell, going into the approvals and adding, well, I have a normal assessment approval, I have a normal implementation approval. You would do all of that through your state record. It uses the out-of-the-box approval engine. It is adaptable to all objects, not just change. And it's only going to require 1 entry in the out-of-the-box approval engine setup, which I will show you when we get into the demo. Not yet supported out of this are the dynamic content-based approvals. So in other words, I have an approval that is based off of information that is currently in my change. That's not supported directly through this process, although it's something that would be easy enough to add. Customer approvals are also not supported because Cherwell does not support customer approvals through its out-of-the-box engine.
Kim, we had a quick question a couple of minutes ago too.
I'm sorry, yes.
Is there no user acceptance testing?
You can add user acceptance testing. Again, this is very adaptable, and this is all data. It's all based on the data that you're going to throw at the change management process. So it's basically extrapolating your change management system into a lot of data and tables, and I'll get to show you that. I will try to add a user testing phase when we get to the demo and see what we can do as far as demoing that. Please, if I do forget, please remind me.
I'll make a note.
And as I was saying, that customer approvals are not yet supported through the engine, so there are ways that we could actually manage those as well by adding some specialized processes in the middle to generate approvers. So how can I do more with this? Well, with configuring change management, first off, you would define your workflow. You would define the phases for your workflow and the states. You would create update forms. You would create or update your forms and attach your forms to each of the states as needed, because you're not obligated to use Cherwell's forms. You can attach your own forms to each one of these states. And when you're hooking these forms up, you want to remember to use the exact name of the form. Anyone who is familiar with Change Management 5.0 and above, where they have the change embedded form table, that is going to be a little bit about how you're going to specify the form name in order to get the form to pop in the right place. So then we have going beyond. Each state has an area for one or more, or for one steps to manage the modification from one state to the next. So I have an associated phase name is requested. Then my next state would be approval. This is very familiar to people who are used to using like the status tables, where you do have some of that next state and how do I get to the next state. Well, in this particular case, going from requested to awaiting approval, I'm going to generate my approvals. And then Cherwell does, on their map, apply certain custom I want to actions and additional actions. You can add more placeholders for additional actions. The process model out of the box has two provided options in their map, but you have the ability to integrate states and actions within that state. You can add additional actions, add the I-1-2s and additional actions. You have the ability to extend it by integrating states and actions within that state. So if I wanted to connect up and make relationships between other objects, I could do that as well. Out of the box, it provides the ability to lock and unlock, make fields read only within a state. So if I say that when I'm in approving, nobody can touch a change, I can do that by just clicking a button in the state rather than trying to go and manage expressions on each one of the fields. We all know how much fun that is. And then, of course, disabling the fields as well. So let's talk about installing the change management map. Applying the map, it's very, very simple to apply. You go ahead and apply the change management map to your test system. You can apply the map as is by simply navigating through the wizard and accepting all of the defaults, and then you publish right from the map. Now, the map does not automatically hook up the process model to change or any other objects. You have to do that manually. Those are a couple additional steps. So those changes required. First, you're going to navigate to the change forms, and you're going to look through the list of forms, and you're going to select Change Management 9.0 and make that form your default. That's the first option. Then you're going to navigate off to your approvals. You're going to remove all of the approvals that are listed in the out-of-the-box approval area, and then you're going to add state approvals. And the name should be state approvals. The trigger for that would be approvals generated equal to true. It comes from the approvers from the relationship RFC owns state approvers. And then the approver ID that links all of it up would be user ID. Then you're going to navigate down to the approval actions on that approval. And for approved, you're going to run the one-step under global approvals, and there's going to be an approved one-step that got put there. You're going to run that. And you also want to deselect the executing this action completes the approval process. And then for deny, you're going to do the exact same thing, only you're going to pick the deny one step, and you're going to deselect that. That's all there is to installing and getting it ready to run. And so I'm going to go through and do a demo of it now. Does anyone have any questions while I get the demo set up?
I don't see any right now. I'll keep an eye out while you're getting it ready.
Sure. I was signed into a different system, so I need to get out here. Excuse me.
One question did pop up. Is it possible to get a copy of the presentation? Absolutely. We will send that out afterwards. We also do record these, so I'll get you a copy of the recording. Generally, it takes a few business days for us to convert the recording and get it uploaded onto our website, but the PowerPoint will be available right away. Make sure to get it to you.
There's a couple of steps, a couple things I just wanted to call your attention to, because I've worked with other people on this map and other maps. When you go out to the Map Exchange, for the Stratacom maps, it's a little bit different because we actually direct you to our website, and on our website, we actually have links to our documentation, our links to download our map. So it looks very different from our perspective because we give everything to you on a single page. And of course, it's going to make me sign in here. I normally present on the other screen, and I was, showing the wrong screen. Okay, so here's what I was saying. When I went through the map store, and when you get into the map store and you bring up change management, you're going to see the download. And so you're not going to see the actual documentation until you actually click into there, and then you're going to see the documentation right there. So opening that documentation is a full document. Let me make that a little bit smaller. So when you're looking through the documentation, it actually walks you through what they've done in the map. It walks you through defining the approval process, defining the form, defining the approvers. And so it actually walks you through all those pieces. Everyone can see my screen now, right?
I believe we're looking at the right thing, yes.
Great. Okay, so when you open up change management and you go to the forms, what I was saying that you needed to do is you needed to scroll down and find the one that says change 9, change request 9. And I've already done this, but so I went to that form and then I just went here to form and I said, make this form the default form. And so now this is your standard default change form when you get into your tool. So most everything is all done through the desktop client. It's not done through the back end. Just that initial setup. Oh, and here in the actual setup too, where we go into the edit approvals, here's your state approvals, and then you go ahead and click on edit. You can see approvals generated equals to true, like I had said, about clearing the approvals from the block. You come in here and you use the approvers from the state relationship. And then on your actions, running the one step of approved, unchecking that box, running deny, unchecking that box. So that's the setup for it. Process model is a major business object. So when we come in here, we're going to look at all the process models that exist that are currently just the change ones. So we're going to go look at minor, for example. And here we have for a minor change, the draft request assessment, and you'll see that mirrors what's over here. We also have those same things that are specified right here. Here's my phases draft requested assessment, implementation completed, and then I have my statuses. So here I have those red ones are the ones that are not part of the golden path. My on hold is a reason for that. Rejected is another one that's not on the golden path. And you'll notice that when I click on those, they actually say so down here on the bottom. It says golden path exception. This state has been removed from the golden path. It can only be activated by a one-step. And so the other statuses are listed in order in accordance with the way that they appear. Then, of course, I have my approvers, and I have any audit history that is being made to this process model. So this process model is live and it's active. So what I can do in order to change it, I can actually switch it to inactive and edit mode. And now I'm able to make changes. So you'll notice I got a message that says this process is currently in edit mode, and right now it's not available for me to use. So now I can actually make changes. I'm going to insert user testing. And when I go to insert a new phase, it's going to ask me for the name. So I'm going to say user testing. And now it says enter, select the new step for this phase. Well, I'm going to put user testing after the assessment, so I'm going to make this step 4. And look at that. It showed up as there, and it also showed up over here. It also moves some of my statuses around. Actually, that's just because I haven't updated my visualizer. So I'm going to go ahead and update the visualizer now. And now you'll notice that it actually updated those and moved those statuses where they belong. So those other statuses belong in implementation. When it's in user testing, I'm going to need a status for it. So I'm going to then add a status. I'm going to open the states. And then I'm going to add a new state. And I'm going to say that this is user testing. Associated form name, I'm going to have to fake that for the moment because I don't have a form for it. Associated phase name is going to be my user testing. And my next state will be implementation. It won't let me type there. I think that it'll figure that out here in a second. So I can actually add a custom next action. Here's where I said that I can actually say all the tasks have to be closed to advance to the next state. And also I can disable my fields when I'm in this state. And then I have those additional I want to alternate actions. So I can do a couple, like maybe put the change on hold or reject the change or something else that I want to do. So I have that ability. So I'm going to go ahead and save for the moment here. And I'm going to go back and update my process visualizer. And you'll notice that it put user testing into the user testing, but right now it says that it's number 12. Well, that's obviously wrong because it should be now closed should be 12 and it should be number 6. So I'm going to go ahead and yes.
We've got a question / comment.
Sure.
One person mentioned fail it back to the beginning, maybe, with a question mark.
Fail the change back to the beginning? That could definitely be one of those alternate states. So those alternate actions, let me go ahead and reorder this first. So I'm going to
that
select,
was the intention of the comment. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to select the user testing, and then it's asking me where I want to move it. So I want to move it to be number 6. So I'm going to select number 6 here. And now when I go to the process visualizer and update, now you'll notice it reordered all of my statuses. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 now, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. So what you were asking is like kind of about like the rollback or reset to first phase, something like that. Or I mean, well, actually that could be its own. We'll just go ahead and create that. So we're going to have reset change. and that's going to be a state order of 0. Name to do, there is no, well, when next. Oh, that's fine. We can still click reset change there. And it can go to the draft because we're resetting the change. And there is no associated phase name for it because, well, we have to pick one to start with. But I'm going to remove it here from the golden path in a second. Okay, so now I'm going to remove a state from the golden path, and I'm going to come here to the reset change, click OK, and now you'll notice that it automatically set that to 0, and it automatically removed all that other stuff that wasn't necessary. So it doesn't require any of those additional fields. So what I would do in any one of these other ones, like draft, review, etc., I would then have a custom action that would be reset change, and I would have an action associated with that, a one step that would go ahead and reset that change back to the beginning. Part of resetting the change would be a one step that would do all of the following. It would clean up. So you may or may not want to remove any old approval histories that have been done. You may or may not want to remove any approvers that have even been set. You may or may not want to remove any tasks. And I say may or may not because it all depends. It's a very, very individualistic thing. So some organizations may want to remove all of that. Some organizations may not want to remove those. So it's something that would have to be decided within your organization. So those are things to consider anyway. Tasks, approvals, even some documentation. I mean, like maybe approved documents that have been, collected along the way. Those are just things that you would like to consider. And so those would all go into that approval, or that reset action, reset change. And then the last step in that would be to then reset back to the draft mode. So you would reset your phase back to draft, and then everything would operate properly just as if you had restarted that change from the very beginning. Does that answer the question? I hope so. Anyway, so what we're going to do here is they included a neat little thing here that will actually go through and validate this. So when I click here on check for errors, it said that it has the exception state for reset change, that missing custom next action. Because when I was over here describing that to you for the, I think I added that to draft. I did. So when I was adding this, I added the alternate action display text, but I didn't add a one step along with it. So I'm just going to go ahead and remove that, save, and now I'm going to go and check for errors again. This time it should go clean. And I'll get a little message, and it says, exception state reset change missing custom. Oh, it has, I'm sorry, that's correct. It has to have, remember what it said about it would have to have a custom action to get it to the next state. So I'm just going to put in a sample here that'll just do a pop-up. Oh, I didn't click OK. Shoot. I'm not sure if this will work because it's not change. I didn't associate that to change. It'll actually at least let me save it here. So we're going to go ahead and check for errors. And of course, there were none because it had a valid action. So it says no errors found. And so then it will allow me to now, if I want to, make this active. I can click on either Activate Process Model or the little button. And now it's going to go and add this back into the system. So now you can see it's been set to green and it says your process is now activated. So now if I go through and I'm going to create a new change, and I'm going to select a minor. Oh, look at that. I didn't have to make any changes. It's magic. All I did was update that process model, and now I have draft requested assessment user testing that we just added, implementation completed and closed. And so then I can actually go through, and so everything that I updated via metadata, via those forms on the process model, is reflected here on the back end inside change. So that's a lot of stuff in a little bit of time. Does anybody have any questions?
I don't see any questions right now, so if you do have questions, now is a great time to enter those in. Oh, here is one. Will it be possible to copy a change request with all the information in the fields in any part of the change?
That is not part of this map. However, you certainly, we can do that. And to prove that something like that can be done, I just want to show you what is included with the process model. So let's say I like something that I see here, but I want to make changes to it, or I'm doing some testing maybe or something like that. So I can actually take that minor, for example. I can come in here, and they have included in the process model, so not in the change data specifically, but in the process model, they've included this clone. So if I go and clone this, first thing it's going to ask me is, what do I want? Well, this is test for demo, okay? And so now I'm going to go ahead and do this. It's going to clone the process model. It's going to clone all of the phases. It's going to clone all of the states. And so if I look here, it looks just like model right now, or minor, excuse me. I copied everything that you saw there for minor. So now I can start going crazy. So if I don't want that user testing phase anymore, I can go in there and select that. And now that's gone. And I can go into anything here and make all these different kinds of changes. I can add an approval to state. So in estimated resources, I'm going to go ahead and I want the minor change approver to approve that. So now I've got two approvals that are in my test for demo. I've got one for estimating resources. I've got one for approving. I could go and add another one if I wanted. Maybe I want peer review to have, and I could add a new approver type here. So I'm going to say peer review. And I'm going to pick Gina as my peer. And so then that means that when it gets to peer review, Gina is going to go ahead and approve my change when it gets there. So I can do all of those additional things. And you'll notice that I cloned everything. So it cloned the phases for this process. It cloned the process model. It cloned the phases. It cloned the states. It cloned the approvals. And it did not clone the history. Those are things that I've just added just now. But it did everything except for clone the history. So likewise, if you're doing something with change management, you could very easily have a clone on that. I've done that for other objects as well, where you specify a clone and it takes a copy of that change record or that incident record or whatever you have, and it creates a new one. And in the process of doing that, then it is a corporate decision, a company decision on what else to copy. Do I want to copy all of those supporting data, or do I want to make them fill that in individually? So that definitely would be a very, very simple thing to do. And of course, this is going to remain out here. I'm not going to activate this process model right now, but if I did, it would actually go right ahead and be active right now that I could use that and change. But instead, I'm going to go back into change request and walk through a change. Does anybody have any questions? I'll go through a standard change.
I don't see
standard
any
change.
other questions right now, so go ahead.
So standard change has, these forms are all like, you can specify whatever you want here. So these are very, very simple changes that you can have. And so the next part of this is it's going to go to review. So when it moves to review, it's part of the assessment phase. So you'll notice that it moved forward right into the assessment phase. I forgot to give it a title. So I'm going to go ahead and, I can't give it a title here. How about that? I guess it should have warned me about that before I moved from draft. So I can go through and add additional, that's why it's locked here, because it's in review. So then I'm in accepted now. From there, I can move into open. And this is part of their processing. This is not probably typical of what you might have in a standard, but I'm just saying that this is the. So open is part of the implementation phase, and then assign. After it's been assigned, then we're going to go to in progress, and then to peer review. There were no, this is part of a standard, which is supposed to be a simple change, so there are no approvals in this process. And so here I'm in technically I'm completed at this time. I'm just going through customer verification. And then from there, I'll go ahead and close the change. If I were using one of the ones that had the approvals, it would stop in the middle there for those approvals as well. Any questions?
Okay, yep, there was one other that came in. Can the type of change, like minor, standard, etc., be part of the menu list?
It could. I mean, so for example, when I go to open a new change, what I can do is I could first ask you a question. Do you want a standard, minor, major? And I could actually set that type before you even get into the change. That's a super easy thing to do, and I can actually just show you that. And then you could actually even take the ability to change that right off of this form. So change, we're going to go to none here. Create a new. So I'm going to create a new business object of change. And when I do so, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and set the type.
The additional comment says file, new change, minor.
They want a minor change. Okay. And so values, whoops, from a table, change type. And so you also have the ability to, you can show it in a drop down, you can show it in a simple text box. We're going to show just a simple text box and see what that looks like here. So when we go through and select this and we go to run this, that's just asking me to enter it. So I'm just going to go ahead. I'm going to change that in a second. So that's minor. Okay, I'm not sure what's in that list. I must have. This is the joys of doing this on the fly when you're on a call. So I'm going to come back in here and I'm going to actually, the simple list is actually the one I was thinking of there. So if I come and look, here I have normal, emergency, or standard. Those are my three options. Now I'm showing you using the one that is delivered out of the box. So we're going to go ahead and select normal there, and normal's not in the process model, so now it's giving me the other one. So I'll click major there. So, but the fact is that when I opened the change, it said major. I can go ahead and change that to be the right process model. Oops. So instead of selecting that from the change type field, which is where that stuff used to come from, selecting it from the process model instead. All tables. Process. And then I would add a constraint where the process model type is equal to change. And I'm not sure whether they called it change or change request. We're going to find out here in a second. They called it change request. Whichever one I was going to pick, I knew it was going to be the wrong one. That field is currently not validated in the process model because it's something that you can associate to other things, but you could easily have validated that and then it would show up and you'd be able to select it right from this list. So you're already seeing different ways that you could extend and change this. Okay, so I must have still gotten that wrong. But anyway, so the fact is you would be able to select right here from the process. It would show the processes that were associated to change management. And then you would be able to select that, and then it would come right in, and it would set the change type to that type. Oh, it's related business object. Okay, so that's why I was getting it wrong, is because I had the wrong. All right, let's fix this one more time. So now when I go ahead and run this, it's going to say what type of change do you want to select, and I'm going to say that I want my minor change. And now I go in, it creates my change. It's already set to minor. There we go. Sorry for the delay. So that in that particular case, then you could actually remove minor from this thing altogether as far as being able to change that. And it already says that it's minor up here, so you could, that could be one piece of data that they don't have to select. And don't have the ability to change. Any other questions?
We did get another one that came in. It says, can you add an additional type of change? For example, normal, standard, emergency, urgent?
Yes. Just like I had, and it's all data. So you don't actually, as long as you have the forms created that support it, you don't have to go and you just have to know what those forms are called. So I can come over here to my process models. Let's say urgent is going to be like emergency, but it's not. So I'll go into my emergency process, and that's the one that's probably closest to, and I'm going to go ahead and clone that, and I'm going to say urgent.
Someone asked for me to repeat the question, so while you're working on that, the question was, can you add additional types of changes?
So we went ahead and actually cloned emergency. I could make any additional changes. I can actually, because that's probably a good one. I don't want ECAP approval, so I'm going to get rid of ECAP approval for the urgent. And so maybe that's what I'm doing for my urgency. I could make any additional changes I want, but I'm just going to leave it alone for the moment. So I'm just going to go ahead and activate it. And it says that there's non-sequential states because I did not update. Okay. Huh. Oh, because after I actually saved it, it went and updated it. So the second time it tried to update it, that's when it activated it. So that's why it activated. So now if I come in here and I go to set my change request, or if I try to run my one step, urgency is now going to be, urgent is now an option. So if I went and I were running my one step to do this as well, and by the way, because I did not specify ones that were active, my test for demo showed up, but urgent is now on that list as well. So I can select urgent right from there. So it would work either way because I'm pulling just data from a table. Additional questions?
Yes, I do see another one that came in. What kind of canned reports do you have relating to failed changes?
To my knowledge, there are no reports that come along with this map. Any of the reports that would be available would be the ones that are available out of the box. So if we come over here and we go to the report manager and we go look at change, they just have basically, there's some change trends, change breakdown, maybe. I'm not sure what that report is. And of course, this is a demo database, so there's not a whole lot of data in here. And the reports take forever to run. Not knowing how old the data is in this database, that's why I went back to the very beginning. So, but again, there's not more than a couple records in here. So here is change breakdown by reason. Okay, this is just showing you the changes by the reason that were specified on the change, like a change in business requirements because it was part of an incident resolution, removal of a CI, or an upgrade to CI. But you certainly could build in any report that you wanted that, for change failures that would actually do something just like this or something more snazzier, prettier. It could be branded with your company's information, any of that. But there aren't any reports that are specified that I'm aware of with this change management out of the box, the 9.0. Because it's not really changing change management per se. All it is really doing is providing a shell for you to run your existing change management on top of. Any additional questions?
I don't see any other questions right now. If you do have any other questions, now is a great time to enter those.
And if you have any other questions that are not related to change management, but are related to something else, or you have questions that you want to ask the floor, you may certainly ask them as well.
Yes, this is a perfect time for us to transition. So if you have questions, you can either raise your hand and I'll unmute you, or you can enter those in the questions panel. Someone would like to know, when is Kim coming back to Kentucky?
I would be happy to come back to Kentucky.
We'll have to work on that and get back to you.
Who is that?
It's a gentleman from Kindred Healthcare.
I figured so.
So questions at this time, we're going to move into our open forum. You don't have to ask them of Kim, but if you have a question for the group, please do let us know. You can raise your hand or type them into the questions panel. I'm happy to ask questions for you of the group. And then if you have answers or comments on anything we have coming up, again, you can put those in the questions panel and I'll read them to the group, or if you can use the raise your hand functionality, I'll be happy to unmute you so you can speak to everyone as well. So far I'm not seeing anything. We will keep the lines open for a couple minutes while you have a chance to think about questions you may have and enter those in. So if you do have questions, now is the time. Or if you've just done something really cool with Sharewell, we'd love to hear about it. If you had some good successes or interesting things you've learned. All right, Steve would like to be unmuted. Give me one moment here. Okay, Steve, I believe you are unmuted. Go ahead and speak.
Hey, Kim, this is Steve. If you
I figured it was you asking. So, how are you doing?
Good. So that's awesome as far as the file create change request, and then it goes to a different one step. So the question comes down to, there is file new that has arrow keys that go. That's a different business object, right? Can the whole thing be changed as far as the business object is concerned to be that flexible?
You're talking about for the process model?
Yeah, for the process model itself.
Yes, the process model can be hooked up to anything. So for example, right now, the process model is delivered, the process model designer is delivered both as a standalone beta object in a map in Sharewell, and also it's delivered as part of this change process as well. But so for example, here under this process model, I could very easily create a new process model incident process, and related business object would be incident. They have a list of them right now, but you could add incident to this related business object, so it's a supported business object. And then, then you could have like a standard incident or something like that. And so then it could have a special process. So would be another one here. So if this were an incident, but it was a service request, so then you would have a service request model. You could identify whether it was a multi-page layout or a single-page layout, whether it uses approvals, tasks, because incident typically is not going to have an approval, but service request will. So that's an example where on incident you would have, one thing that would use approvals and another one that wouldn't. And then obviously the service request is going to use tasks. Maybe your incidents don't use tasks because incidents are generally just worked out of the incident. So it's allowing you to really make Sharewell work the way you want Sharewell to work. Not necessarily the way, it was delivered out of the box, but you can really run it to your own little heart's content.
Awesome. It looks nice. This would have been nice in 7.0, but I might have to play around with it.
It's certainly something, and you and I can talk offline too about that. It's certainly something that you can add to your system. Are you on 9.0 now? Not yet. Okay.
We're getting ready to go.
It's very, very, honestly, this map installs in a minute. It's not a very difficult map to install, and it would hook up very easily to any of your business objects.
Okay, cool. That's awesome. Thank you for the presentation. It was nice to see the new version and what it can do. It looks like it's a little bit more robust than 7.
The change management in 5.0 and slash 7, the change management there was a little bit broken. They actually enhanced, believe it or not, they actually enhanced change management when they brought in that change embedded form.
Mm-hmm.
That was a real big enhancement for Cherwell. And when they did that, they disconnected some of the plugs between some of the statuses in the states that were already working in some of the earlier versions. Well, they disconnected a couple of those plugs. So it's one of those expectations that when you go in to start using change management in anywhere from 5 to 8 or whatever, that you have to actually go through and just rehook up some of the plugs.
Gotcha.
And as I'm going to reiterate something that I know that you've heard because I said it when I was down there a long time ago, is that every change management system, and I just had this reiterated to me last week, every change management system is different. In all the time I've been doing change, I've never met 2 change management systems that have been anything alike. And
true enough.
I was at Cherwell last week, and one of the things that they said is that change management, they have a really graceful way of putting it, and I can't remember exactly what that was. I'll have to look it up. But it was basically about it being requiring just a little bit of touching to make a change management system function individually for each one of your customers.
Right. We have the main group per se that will go with whatever we give them as far as a process is concerned. But then we have the people that want their policies and processes put into the change also for the tasks, more or less, and then just customized to the extent of it could be anything. So you've seen our systems before from older applications, so you know how they can get. So yeah, it is definitely an update as far as having to create a one-step for not only everything but creating the form and all that stuff, because the form looks like it's just basically there, which is awesome.
Yeah, and you can add any additional forms, and you can make it scroll through each one of the additional forms. You can do any of those things, and it really works beautifully. This actually extends, the idea behind this obviously was the change embedded form, and it extends the change embedded form and just makes it flow very gracefully between all the different statuses.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you for your time, and I can't wait for the little PowerPoint presentation and the recording on this.
And here's what they said. Each change management system is a finely crafted workflow.
It is.
So, and that's what I was trying to look for, and so that's the words that they used. I thought that was really a nice way to say what I've been saying all these years. So.
Well, I tell everybody, even from before we had something that was configurable, it's like if you don't have a process, then it's not a change. I look at it that way. If you don't have something that I can go from start to end, then it's not a change request. And they say, but this will never end, and it's like, well, then it's not a change. That's how I look at it. If you don't have an end point of your process, then you're really not doing a change request. You're doing something completely different. So if they can identify it, I could probably build it for them.
Yeah, and I would agree. Are there any more questions too, Laura?
We had one, but it looks like the person found the answer. They were wondering if the map will be available for download from Sharewell. And yes, the map will be out at the Sharewell Map Exchange. That's where you'll be able to find that.
It is out there on the Map Exchange, so anybody can go download it today and use it. Of course, because it is technically a beta. I mean, Sharewell doesn't support it like through their normal exceptions process. I mean, like as a provider, we certainly would be able to assist, you by, services and helping to get the map installed or do what you want with the map. We can do any of those things as well. So, but it is just a regular map as if anybody else had put a map out there as well. So, but we, like I said, we could provide process and help through services as well if you needed help getting it installed. Any other questions?
I don't see any others queued up, so if you do have questions, now is a great time to pop those in or raise your hand. Let me check, do a quick check for hands. I don't see any hands raised. We'll leave the line open for about 1 more minute in case anyone has comments or questions, and then we'll wrap. Again, in the next few days, we'll get the copy of the recording out, and I can send everyone who's attended today the PowerPoint slides right away.
And I'll get those PowerPoint slides out to Laura, directly after this meeting. So that won't be a problem. She'll have it right away.
Wonderful.
Thanks, Laura. Thanks, Kim.
Absolutely. Glad you could join us.
Thank you.
All right. Well, I don't see any questions or any hands, so I'm going to assume at this point we're going to be wrapped. We will be presenting again in August, so keep an eye out for, we haven't picked a date yet, but keep an eye out for the invitation. We hope you can join us next month, and feel free to send the links and PowerPoints to your teams and circulate those to share. Well, thanks for your content today, Kim, and I hope to see you all again in August.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.